Have you ever heard of a 2-year-old child who has never spoken a single word? Every day, his mother, Hoai Ca, patiently sits beside him, teaching him letters and sounds on an old, faded alphabet board. She believes that with enough love, a miracle will happen. But what no one knows is that there's a man quietly wandering from town to town, trying to find a way to help the little boy speak, even if it means giving up everything. And behind what seems like a simple journey lies a secret buried deep inside an old house, a past that was never truly put to rest. What's really waiting for them at the end of this road? Stay with me till the end, and you'll understand why even the storyteller couldn't hold back their tears. Hoai Ca began to notice how the silence in their small house was growing heavier each day. Tony, her little boy, who had just turned 2, still couldn't speak clearly. Every morning, as sunlight spilled through the window, only the sound of roosters crowing and the wind brushing through the bamboo trees answered her gentle call for him. Sometimes Tony made short sounds like mum, mum, or mama, but then he'd fall back into that quiet, distant space again. Hoai Ca smiled, trying to hide the worry in her eyes, but every time she saw her son staring at his toys without saying a word, her heart tightened in a way she couldn't explain. Tony's silence wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the kind that made you feel uneasy. At night, she often sat next to him softly, running her fingers through his hair, asking if he had dreams, if he could hear her singing. Tony would only smile his big, innocent eyes, looking up at her, making her feel both love and pain all at once. Day by day, the fear inside her kept growing. She didn't know where she went wrong. Was it because she was too busy working to make ends meet? Or was it just fate that made her child different from the others? Every time she walked past the neighbor's house and heard other children babbling their first words, she'd lower her head and quietly hold Tony's hand tighter, as if afraid someone might notice something was wrong. In their small house in the poor countryside, life moved slowly. But inside, Hoai Ca was a storm of worry and guilt. She started paying attention to every detail. Did Tony's eyes follow when she called his name? Did his lips move when she read letters out loud? She was terrified when he stayed silent for too long, afraid he was drifting deeper into a world no one else could reach. Hung seemed to feel it too. Every time he looked at Tony, a strange ache filled his chest. He wasn't the boy's biological father, but the way Tony looked at him when he was in his arms made him feel like there was an invisible thread connecting the three of them. As days passed, Hung could see the exhaustion behind Hoai Ca's smile. She laughed more often to hide it, but her voice had lost its brightness. Stories about chickens' corn drying or selling sugar cane at the market no longer carried any joy. They were just small distractions to stretch out the days and escape the fear that her son might never speak. One morning, while teaching Tony to name colors, she suddenly stopped. The boy sat there, eyes drifting into nowhere, holding a yellow block without making a sound. Her lips trembled as she swallowed hard. It felt like something was stuck in her throat, the feeling of a mother slowly losing faith in herself. She started remembering the times Tony got sick when he couldn't tell her where it hurt. She realized her biggest fear wasn't the silence itself, it was not being able to understand what her child needed. Every sigh, every quiet meal became a mark carved into her heart. In the darkness, Hoai Ca understood that her life would never be peaceful again. Tony's silence had become a warning bell. A journey filled with worry and fragile hope was beginning, and she had no idea where it would end. That afternoon, the last rays of sunlight spread across the old tile roof, casting the shadows of Hoai Ca and her son over a small study table in their quiet home. The air was fresh after a light rain. Everything felt clean again. Only the soft sounds of insects and the faint clicking from a new talking alphabet board filled the room. Hoai Ca sat across from her son, her eyes gentle but deep, carrying a weight she couldn't hide. She had just bought the toy at the market, a small electronic learning board that spoke letters and numbers out loud. To anyone else, it was just a toy. But to her, it was hope, maybe her last try before taking her son to a doctor. Tony stared at the board, his tiny hands exploring each button. Every time a sound played, he tilted his head as if trying to find where the voice was coming from. Hoai Ca smiled a shaky, fragile smile. She watched every little reaction her heart caught between fear and expectation. If he could just make a sound, any sound, no matter how small or unclear, she would believe that everything she'd done was worth it. Sunlight streamed through the window, glinting on Tony's soft hair. He tried holding a pencil, but the first marks he made were just uneven, random lines. Still, to Hoai Ca, that was progress. She moved closer, gently, guiding his hand, patient and careful, as if holding the most precious thing in the world. In her eyes, there was no exhaustion anymore, only a fragile but determined kind of faith, the kind that refuses to die even when the world says it's impossible. The learning board's mechanical voice broke the silence. "Hello, little one. Try pressing a button." The cold, robotic tone somehow brought the room to life. Tony laughed, a bright, clear laugh that melted Hoai Ca's heart. He pressed a few more buttons. Cat pig, then turned around looking for the person who had called him. The sight made Hoai Ca's chest tighten. She covered her mouth as tears welled up, joy and fear mixing into a feeling that was both sweet and painful. When Hung came home, the sun had already dipped low. He stood in the doorway, watching the two of them at the little table, and felt his heart sink. He had spent the entire day traveling across the district, trying to find a speech therapy center, but came back empty-handed. No one would take them, and no one knew how to help. The same cold answer echoed in his mind. "We don't have a program for that here." Yet there she was, still teaching her son, calm and patient, as if the whole world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Hung stepped inside, bringing with him the scent of rain and soil. He sat down beside them quietly, watching Tony's small movements. The boy didn't notice him, too focused on his scribbles. Hung looked at Hoai Ca. She didn't say a word, only smiled softly, but her eyes were full of quiet hope. He felt something powerful, a kind of mother's love that made his chest ache. He thought about the long day, the red dirt roads, the houses scattered on the hills, the same helpless replies from strangers. And now seeing this, a mother holding on to hope when everyone else had given up, made him feel small. Outside, the sunset stretched across the yard as the chickens wandered back to their coop, their hoarse clucking echoing through the damp air. Hung spoke softly, telling her there were no centers nearby, that they might need to travel farther. Hoai Ca nodded, not surprised. She had probably known that all along. She said she would teach Tony herself, that she wouldn't stop until he spoke. Her voice was calm, but her hand trembled as she placed it gently on Tony's head. Hung looked at her hands, rough, thin, but warm, and realized that a mother's love could reach beyond any kind of helplessness. Tony looked up, his eyes bright, smiling at them, as if he understood something. He pressed a button. The board spoke 1-1. Then he turned to his mother, his lips moving, but no sound came out. Hoai Ca held her breath. For a moment, the whole room felt still. Then Tony laughed, hugging the learning board to his chest. Hoai Ca exhaled, smiling through her tears. She knew maybe he wouldn't speak today, but at least he was listening, reacting, living in the world she was building for him. When Hung stepped outside, the sun had given way to night. He turned back and saw the light from the talking board flickering inside, reflecting off Hoai Ca's face as she leaned close to her son. And in that moment, he understood you don't need miracles. With enough patience and love, even the smallest things can become something extraordinary.